there are some things which are very specific to the mobile part and the wireless networks. So I will go in depth about that. So it will not be just covering on the top, right? And those of you who have not taken this course, I think it will be first thing for them.
This course is a core course, compulsory.
It's a core course, but there are some things which are a little different from colleges to colleges and so on. And also things that I will teach afterwards about routing, that will need some of the in-depth knowledge of this chapter. So I will go through this chapter. Maybe some things you will understand for the first time because I am going to go in. So why mobility, right? So anything you study for the mobile computing is not complete unless you really understand the mobile networks, and then it's all wireless. If you want to have mobility, by definition it will be wireless. And there is a tremendous growth in the appliances or devices that we can use for mobility. Laptops, PDAs, internet-enabled phones. So almost everything is getting untethered. And two important things that differentiate between the wired network and the wireless is communication over wireless link. So can anybody tell me, if you have taken this course, what are the challenges with the wireless link as opposed to the wired link? So we connect the wired Ethernet, a standard Aloha protocol that we run, and then there is wireless. So what are the differences in the protocol?
Packet loss is considered as network congestion, which
right. So you are going into very advanced thing.
Distance actually, the wireless is
But you can have long distance wireless also, right? A satellite link. But yes, most of the time this distance is short. And why is it so?
Obstacles.
Obstacle is one reason. Yes, obstacle. What is the other reason you can't go long distance, or it's hard to go long distance? Obstacle is one. What could be the other reason? Frequency. So frequency decides, if you know the wavelength and the relation between frequency and wavelength, there is a limit, right? So depending upon what frequency you choose, your distance gets limited. What is another thing? So why is not your phone, so if you have a Delhi based phone, why can't it go to Bombay and still communicate to the cell phone tower? To the same cell phone tower. What could be the reason?
so the signal leakage.
Signal leakage, right? So power. You have such a small device with a very small battery. If you want to reach out to such a large distance, and the difference between wired and wireless is wired, the channel is limited, right? So you send a packet, it only goes through the wire. It doesn't get propagated to the entire air or the surrounding. In wireless, when you send even one packet, it goes into the air, into the surrounding, right? So the energy is not focused. If you focus your energy, just like sunlight, onto one point, the intensity is more. But if your energy gets spread out across all the environment, then the energy is coming down or it decays very fast. And if you have such a small battery, you can't send a packet. So that's the reason, I think one of the most important reasons is the power. That you cannot go long distances. And now, the challenge now is, and this is what 3G is not able to solve, 4G will probably solve it. So anybody knows what is the difference between a 3G and a 4G network? I'm not even talking about 2G, 3G and 4G. Bandwidth is one. Yeah, so bandwidth will always keep on increasing, right? But there is one, which is the significant big difference. Okay, so 2G to 3G, there is a big bandwidth jump. 2G gives you something in kbps, like 64 kbps. 3G will give you 384 kbps or so. So there is a big jump in bandwidth. So, but going from 3G to 4G, what is
Spectrum also increases.
yes? But what is the primary thing? Anybody know?
If you are there is a connection between the network and the Wi-Fi.
Right.
So it's getting there. So with 3G to 4G, what's happening is there is not much gain in the bandwidth. There is not much gain in the power also. There are minor differences. But the big difference is now you can roam between one network to another network seamlessly. So for example, if you have a phone and you are talking a voice over IP call through 3G, right? So it's a video call. And the call is progressing, you are outside and talking, you enter a building, now you have the network capability of Wi-Fi also, right? So you move from the standard 3G network to the Wi-Fi network. What will happen today is your call will get dropped first, probably. 3G bandwidth drop, the call will get dropped, you have to reinitiate the call, select Wi-Fi network and then make another call, right? But in 4G, the phone is smart enough to detect this change in the network. You will see that the 3G quality is not good, and I am entering a building which has a very good Wi-Fi. It will automatically switch from one network to another network, and your call will not be disrupted. Now, what is the challenge in network to do this? Anybody can think of a challenge if you have taken the computer networks course. What is the challenge now?
Have to switch from different network to wireless.
Right, but if you go technically down now, what is in the computer network? Different interface, that's fine, but I switch the interface, I send the packet now. What is the challenge?
The challenge would be to minimizing these handovers from one type of network to another with maximizing the throughput and optimizing, say, the quality of service that you are getting.
But that is a second order. I am talking about a very basic thing. That is a second order. First thing, so you have all of your laptops. You connect it through the wired internet. You are browsing the net. Let's say you have a Skype call going on, and somebody disconnects the wire and asks you to switch on your Wi-Fi and use it. What will happen? Call will disconnect. But okay, let's forget even the call. If you take out the wire and switch on the Wi-Fi, what is one thing that changes? IP address. Right? Right. But IP address might change. Right? Or if you have both the networks connected, you will have two IP addresses. Okay. Now, coming back to the routing, think in terms of routing. What is the change now? Can you think? So you have to think. So it's not a computer networks course in chapters now. You have to think through all the chapters with all the protocols in your mind and understand the whole system of networks, and then think of the problem now. Where could be the issue?
Because the data was being routed through a tower, now it is have to be routed through a...
Right. So the routing has changed. Whenever you change an IP address, what it will affect is routing. Why do you need an IP address? Let's go to the very basic question.
To identify each every system ID.
Right. So every system on the internet has a unique ID. And that is the IP address. No two systems on the internet can have the same IP address. Because? So let's now get answers from other students, right? Those who have actually not played with the networks. We have learned the theory part, but let's get to the hands-on thing now. Why do you need, so what is the need for having two unique IP addresses?
Identify.
Let's talk. Maybe from you in the back. Why do you have unique IP addresses? Why not two same IP addresses?
Routing purpose.
What will happen with the routing if you have two same IP addresses?
The data would go to both addresses.
Right, so it's a confusion, right? So if you have two same telephone numbers and I call this telephone number, where would I terminate this call? That is a challenge. So that's why first of all you need two unique IP addresses. Now if I may ask the last question in this series, why not use a MAC address? If there is a unique MAC address for every machine, why use IP address and not a MAC address?
MAC address comes at a hardware.
That's fine. It's a unique address. That's what I need. for every computer in the world.
It has a longer representation.
That's also fine. Now IPv6 you have a longer representation. Think about this. Taken the network scores, there are so many port numbers. Why? Why you need a unique IP address? Not unique MAC address is good enough.
So if you change the location of a system, like you travel to another country.
Again, think in terms of your mobile phones. Every phone has a unique IMEI number, right? So it's like a MAC address. Every phone comes with a unique IMEI number. But when you call your friend, you don't use his MAC IMEI number, right? Use a very standard 10-digit number in India. Or if you want to have a global unique number, you can even take a country code and put that number. Why do you do that? Why not use the IMEI number of your friend? What would be the challenge?
One would be usability.
Usability, so that's what you were saying, the size and so on. But we save it in the, I don't even remember the 10-digit number nowadays, right? Everything is saved in the phone book. I can save the number in the phone book.
Because MAC address cannot uniquely say like the region.
Right. So the routing, that's again coming back to the question of routing. So if I have a Delhi-based number, let's say landline number, it has the STD code of 11. If I dial that, what happens is from wherever I dial it in the entire world, it knows that 91 is India, geographically aligned with each other. So for example, all the IP addresses in Delhi, in India would be, they have some common prefix. Or looking from the customer point of view or the business point of view, all the IP addresses within MTNL will have some unique common prefix. All the IP addresses within Tata Telecom, Reliance and so on will have common prefix and they know how to write it.
But if we are not considering the fact that routing to MAC addresses would be resource inefficient, then how would it matter if I do not use the IP address? Say if I have a store of all the MAC addresses,
Yes.
I can obviously, and I have a, considering what you're saying right now,
Yes.
I'll obviously have a store of all the IP addresses
Right.
and what they route to.
Yes.
So if I do not consider IP addresses and route it to the MAC
MAC
address,
addresses
it would just be inefficient.
in the routers.
They have to
So
route
they'll flood all over to search for the MAC address.
Right? So there is a concept called routing table, right? What is a routing table? Anybody is in abstraction, in theory, what does a routing table look like? So what routing table looks like typically,
it actually some in first 20 bits it will check and it will
right. Tag A dot B dot C dot D is your IP address, right? So it will look at some prefix, and if this prefix is something, it will send packet to router 1, or in fact here it will say wire 1, right? Then if this is something else, these three numbers, it will send it to wire 2 and so on, right? So this is your routing table, and you have compressed it a lot. What is the compression rule? What is the thing that is compressing this routing table? If I have to uniquely write down every IP address in the world and write this entry, right? How many bit entries do I have? It's a 32-bit IP address,
2 to the power.
right? 2 to the power 32. Now, if I put the MAC addresses now, what's going to happen? Unique MAC address,
So it's hexadecimal.
right? So it's a 48-bit. Right? So the answer to that question is, it's inefficient in terms of, first of all, the storage of IP table, and on top of that, how do you search it, right? But when we move to IP addresses, and then you have class A, B, C, D, right? We will not go into that detail of class A, B, C, D and classless and so on. But because of that, you can combine with all the IP addresses with same first 20 bits into one pool, and then just have one routing action for them, and that compresses my IP table. Okay. Now coming back to our question of moving from one network to another network, what happens is my IP address would change. Because if this wireless has the prefix of 192.168. Let's say 1.x. These are all my wired address, right? And for wireless, I give 192.168.4.x, right? So these are all my wireless IP addresses. Now I jump from wired to wireless. So my IP will change from 1 dot something to 4 dot something. Now what's going to happen? The challenge here is, what is the challenge? Looking at the IP routing tables. Different, right? And now it may not even have this entry, but if the entry is there, what will happen is, if one packet, say let's say you have a Skype call, all the packets are going with this address, 1.x, right? Suddenly you move to 4.x and you have a voice packet coming in to 1.x. Now this packet will be dropped by the router because it doesn't know where to send it, right? Or even if it knows where to send it and sends it to the right, it will go to somebody else's 1.x. And if it's a dynamic protocol address, your friend's computer is logged on to the wired access and it is allocated 1 dot something address, and the packet comes to that new laptop. Because you are sitting now on 4 dot something, the packet is still going to 1 dot something, right? So that was the challenge that was solved in 3G to 4G. So can you think of a solution now? If you are the designer of the internet or mobile IP, mobility, how would you design? How would you solve this problem now?
Put one more entry of MAC address.
What will be the? Yeah, first of all, it will be an IP address. Right, so what will be the new entry for IP address?
The MAC address.
MAC address.
Yeah, well, like IP address, map it to that MAC address. MAC address is nothing.
Right. So that is what. So anybody knows what is this? So by the way, this is not part of the routing table. There is a mapping from MAC to IP. What is it that called? ARP. So there is something called Address Resolution Protocol, and that has all these. But so that is a layer 2 thing, right? So if you have to understand this in terms of layers. On your router, we are talking at a different layer. That doesn't have any information about the MAC address. It doesn't even know what is a MAC address. So the routing will still has to be changed, and it cannot contain the MAC address. Because that was our design decision. We will not put a MAC address. So think about this. Maybe at the end of the chapter you will understand the solution. I will not go because there are a lot of things that needs to be done at the protocol level. But finally we will come at the solution where we will say, if this happens, let's say in 4G it's already happening. When you move from one network to another network, how can you make it seamless for the application and for the user? So there is no call drop, there is no new call initiation, you still receive the same call. So in terms of phone network, you can assume it to be, you are calling with some number of Delhi, you move from Delhi to Bombay all the way, right? And you change cell tower one at a time.
So actually it first establishes the connection on the other network using the same IP, it says that, and then it's like IP to MAC address, like they have a tuple, like IP address and MAC address, right? So if you change from 3G to a wireless, a Wi-Fi network, it first establishes the call, like it has initiated, and then it will drop from here. So it will work seamlessly. It will have a single IP to MAC address security.
So what you're saying is you create another call, but already lost a connection. So the challenge is you lost the connection, let's say a wired and wireless. I was talking about this example, right? So you lost the connection of 1 dot something, and you don't have that IP address. Your wired is taken out.
The system, in that case, I'm saying that when it changes seamlessly from one interface.
Right. So that happens in a telephone network also. I was coming to the same thing. Like you move from Dwarka to another area, your cell towers are continuously changing. Right? It's not just a single cell tower. You go from here to Noida, you change so many cell phone towers, but you can still keep talking. without stopping the call. So in a sense it is happening in one network. But the big difference there and here is, in this network, you are connected to the same Airtel network or whatever service provider is, right? And you're switching between these. What I was talking in here is you change the network completely. You go from wire to wireless, 3G to Wi-Fi to Bluetooth and to any other network, right? So now the problem is it's more complex as compared to just switching from within the network from one area to another area. And so you got the complexity of one problem as opposed to another problem, right? So one simple thing is you change just the cell phone towers, move from one cell phone tower to another cell phone tower and so on, and that is simple to solve. That is already solved. But when you change from one wireless to wired, wired to Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi to 3G, 3G to let's say some other network, infrared and so on, that problem is complex. And we also want a solution for that. Okay? So we'll look into that. So mobility, it creates a huge problem for the IP and TCP. Remember, TCP, IP and everything, all these protocols were first designed for the wired network, and you cannot change them because it's already there in all the routers. Now you have moved to wireless, you can't change those protocols. You have to change all the routers protocol in the entire world, which is not possible. So now that even adds complexity, more complexity to the whole problem. So we'll see the model of the entire network and typically what happens in wireless. Now, because we cannot change the internet, right? I can't change the internet of Tata, Reliance and everybody, Airtel. What I can change is, locally within this campus I can do something. So whenever you see wireless network, it's always at the end. There is this internet here sitting, and only at the last mile there is wireless. So the advantage of this architecture, if you look at, this is still TCP/IP. Standard TCP/IP running wired network, there is nothing wireless here. And that's why we can run the same protocol. We put wireless only at the edge of the network. Right? So here what is, so the scalability of the system comes in because we can leverage the same internet, just put wireless here. People are working to make this also wireless, but it's a very challenging thing. Right? If you want to make the core network wireless, it's a big thing. And nobody is still able to do it.
But you get data cards, so how that is wireless.
Right, so what is the data card? What is the architecture? What do you think would be the architecture?
Yeah,
of the data card?
you have to plug it into the this USB stick, like a USB stick, you plug it into the laptop or desktop and you can access the internet through that.
Right. But what happens is, it's still wireless at the edge. So your data card just talks to the cell tower. Right? There is a cell tower that you connect your phone also, mobile phone. Your data card is only talking to the cell phone tower, and that cell phone tower has a wire going for the internet access. Right? So the core internet, it's still wired. So this will be the wireless. So typically wherever you see the tablets, everything, right, in your home you go, you switch on your laptop, everything. At the end it's wireless. Everything in between is wired, right? You still get internet through cable modem or DSL and so on. So this will be our architecture. We will simplify it. We will not put the network in the code. In almost all the wireless network, you will see, you will always find an entity called base station. So cell phone tower in your mobile phone is the base station, right? What is the base station in Bluetooth? A mobile device or a computer mostly. So in Bluetooth there is a protocol where there is a master and slave. So there is a master and a slave device. The master is the Bluetooth base station. Right? And any wireless network typically will have it. Have you seen a wireless network without the base station? Ad hoc networks.
But still, the one creating the ad hoc network would act as a base station.
No, so it's completely peer-to-peer. So when you create an ad hoc wireless network, what happens is there is no master What is the typically responsibility of master? Can anybody tell me what is a typical? So we'll see all these protocols in detail. But if I have to ask, what if there is a master, what is the responsibility of master? It has control. So can you give an example of control? What kind of control?
It has a
So what happens is master is running the clock first of all. So it's a master's clock. So master says 8 o'clock, it is 8 o'clock in the entire network. Right? The slave has to follow it. And why do you have to have a clock there? It's because when the master transmits, nobody else will transmit and so on. Right? So if master says I will transmit at 8 o'clock, he will transmit at 8 o'clock. Nobody else will get a chance. Right? If a master says slave 1 transmit at 9 o'clock, the slave 1 will transmit at 9 o'clock. So that there is no collision. And we'll see all these things. So the master is the one who is running the network, entire show, and we will have that. In ad hoc networks, which is another class of the network, there is no master. And it becomes very challenging then who is running the clock and so on. But otherwise you see all the cell phone towers, access point, 3G, 2G, 4G, everybody there is a central control and it is called a base station. Hello in the back. So the challenge now is, and we just discussed this, what happens if one entity is mobile and it is moving from one base to another base and here and there, how would you route packets? Right? And we will see a solution for that. Right? So if you look at wireless spectrum, and there is a lot of things going on about the spectrum, how is it divided? So we can, over in the broad category, it says there is something which is totally indoor, then outdoor, mid-range and long-range. Right? So if you look at this, so this is the distance on the x-axis. On the y-axis, you see the bandwidth that you are getting. Right? What is the throughput? So if you see your standard 2G and 3G, 2G is about 56 kbps and it's the basic thing you can get over any voice channel. Right? 3G is giving you 384 kbps. And one primary difference between this and this is the coding also, and the kind of antennas you have and so on the protocol. Right? But this you can see it goes from indoor to all the way to the long range. Right? So you can even have a cell phone tower which is very highly mounted and give you a range of 5 kilometers. Typically it is here, about 1 kilometer. So every cell phone tower has a radius of 1 kilometer around it where it can reach. So in the urban areas like in Delhi, Bombay, big cities, there are so many cell phone towers, and in the rural areas there are less number. So what is done in urban areas is you cut down the power, transmission power of all the cell phone towers, so that you don't interfere, and we'll see what is interference. Then 802.15, which is 1 Mbps, 11B, the first one is 5 to 11, and then 54, if you go to A and G, you get 54 Mbps. Right? So there is another thing which is called the frequency, and I am not showing the frequency here.
2.4 gigahertz.
But do you know what is the frequency band?
2.4
2.4 gigahertz. Typically. So why 2.4 gigahertz? Any more examples? So Wi-Fi is 2.4 gigahertz. What is another network that you know of, which is 2.4 gigahertz?
Cordless phones.
Cordless phones. Anything else? Anything else? Bluetooth. So why everybody is using 2.4 gigahertz? Do you know the reason?
It's all over the world. No, it's unlicensed.
It's unlicensed all over the world. Both the things. Right? It's first of all unlicensed. That means you can even have your own radio and transmit at 2.4 gigahertz without taking permission from the government. Right? Rest of the bands are licensed. So unless and until you get a license, you cannot play. But the challenge here, then what happens is even your microwave oven, that is sending microwaves, they also fall into 2.4 gigahertz. So if you switch on your microwave and there is a cordless, there will be a lot of deception. Right? Because even that is generating the same energy. this is the standard mode for Wi-Fi. So I'm looking at Wi-Fi. It's called infrastructure mode. So all the access points that you see around Cisco access point, they are in this mode, infrastructure. So that means there will be a base station and there will be mobile nodes around it which are all in slave mode. So base station will find out how many nodes are there and they will send data. So what will be the protocol? Which layer of network will this base station operate to talk to the mobile nodes? Which OSI protocol layer? Network layer? Will it be network layer? So physical for sure, because without physical, I mean every communication will happen at the physical layer, right? But till what layer it will go on? So it will go till the network layer. So actually most of the things that are happening here is happening at the MAC layer. Right? So network layer, I mean there is very basic communication. So you see wired Ethernet. What is the protocol you use for wired Ethernet? What is the name of that protocol? When you connect the wire, what is the name of that protocol? What is the protocol that wired Ethernet uses? So what is CSMA CD? Carrier sense multiple access and collision detection, right? So that is the protocol which is used by the wired Ethernet, right? So that is at layer 2, and we are replacing wired with wireless. That means one thing that will primarily change is the wireless part, which is the link layer protocol, right? So at the OSI model, you go all the way to the link layer. There is minimal thing happening at the network layer. Right? Because network layer is already there and it's same. You are connecting to the internet with the same kind of an IP address and you talk to the google.com or whichever website, right? So there is not much change happening over the network layer. It will be the same routers that you would use. What is changing is you take out the wire and put the wireless. So the link layer is changed drastically, and of course the physical layer. But you go to the link layer. So it's here. So what is so we'll see what handoff and so on. So there is another mode which we looked at, ad hoc mode. So what happens in ad hoc mode, you see all the nodes are at the same level. So it's like a peer-to-peer model of Napster or file exchange, any file exchange protocol. So everybody is at the same layer and there is no master who will control the time, right? So what will happen for the time? So if I want to ask you, what would be one, there has to be a time. So in wireless, the most important thing is the time. In wired is not. In wired internet, what happens is if two nodes send the packet at the same time, what happens? In CSMA CD, there is a collision. Everybody detects the collision, right? And they back off and so on. We'll see that protocol. But in wireless, you don't want this thing to happen continuously, right? So you decide on a time. 8 o'clock, one guy transmits. 9 o'clock, second guy will transmit, so on. So there is a clock. If you have the infrastructure mode of base station and the mobility nodes, base station's time is the time, right? So he's the master. What would be the time in this one? Can you think of a protocol? If you are the protocol designer, what would be the protocol?
Some round robin kind of.
Oh, you can. So the one is the round robin, but the challenge with this is then you always move from one time to another time, right? Which is not a good thing. So if you are to design this protocol, how would you design the protocol? Think of maybe a minute or so. Which time you would take?
There's no master.
No, somebody said. There is no master.
All these peers select one as a master.
But even for selection, you need to have time, right? You cannot send a message unless you have time. And where does the time come from? So think of, in mathematical terms, the simplest case of this network. In the simplest case, how many nodes are there? So, okay, there is nobody at the beginning, right? So there is no network. One node comes. How many nodes are there? Just one node, right? So there is a network of one node. So whose time will you use? That node, right? So he will use his own time. Second node comes. Whose time will it use? He is joining the network. So second node comes. So the way the protocol designs are like this. Second node comes. He will see, okay, is there a network around me? If there is no network, he is the first one. He will use its own time. If there is already a network, somebody says, okay, there is a network already, right? What will he do? He will join that network and use the time of that network, which is the time of the first node, right? So the simple way to design the protocol is the node which comes the first and form the ad hoc network, start the ad hoc network, you will use that node's time throughout the lifetime of the network. And you solve this problem like this. So there is no master and slave. But to get time, you can use, or you will use the time of the first node, right? So this is how you design the distributed system. So this is all distributed system and you designing a protocol in a distributed network. And then you can prove very nice properties. If you want to do really theoretical analysis, there will be a unique time. There will always be a unique time because there will be one node which is joined at the very beginning, right? And you can prove all the properties of this network. So going the big differences of wired and wireless. So first of all, decreased signal. Your signal propagates very fast first of all, but then the energy also decreases very fast. As you shout, you can reach some distance. But then as you go away from me, you won't be able to hear me. And that is called a path loss. Right? And every environment has its own path loss. Yeah, so this environment has walls and so on, it has its own path loss. Then if I go to the, so do you know that Wi-Fi network, if you take the Wi-Fi network and put it in a forest, it's very bad for the Wi-Fi network because all the leaves, the green material, right, the vegetation, they absorb 2.4 gigahertz very fast. Right? So that's why Wi-Fi is very good for indoor environment, the concrete world. But if you take any of these networks and go into the forest, into the rural areas, all the signal just decays very fast. Right? So that environment has a very big path loss and the energy comes down to the zero very fast. Another one is interference. There is only limited number of unlicensed band and anybody can transmit in that unlicensed band, and because of that there is too much of interference. So if I am speaking and you are also speaking at the same time, we overlap in terms of frequency, right? And then nobody will be able to hear us properly. So that is a very big challenge in the wireless part. So even the non-communicating devices, I talked about the microwave oven. Right? So if you have a microwave oven inside, then even that will cause an interference and reduce the energy very fast. Another one is multipath propagation. Anybody knows what multipath propagation is?
So your signal is travels, it bounces off multiple, so you get same packet multiple times. And
Right. So what happens is if I am sending a packet and there is one shortest distance route, right, from here to this chair, which goes directly, and it will get one packet, right? The same signal will bounce on the ceiling and again come back. And what will happen is there will be a small delay or a phase shift. So you know all the frequencies, right? So there is something called a phase shift, right? And so the two signals will interfere with each other with a small difference of time lag. And they will cancel each other afterwards. So at the end product of this is there is no packet received at the chair, right? So if you look at in the diagram, so this is the source, this is the destination. So one packet comes directly like this, another packet bounces on the ceiling and then comes here, right? But if you look at this waves, so this is the first wave, right? And the second wave is here. Because this distance is more, it takes more time to travel and then the signals arrive little late. So that is the phase shift, right? But at this point onwards, till this point, these two energies gets combined, right? So this value will be sum of this and sum of this in vector terms, right? And finally your signal is corrupted from this point onwards. Okay? So that is multipath propagation. What is the new area that is coming up is called software defined radio. So what happens is all of your TV channels, Z, Star and so on, they are allocated some bands from the satellite, right? So all of these bands have some gap in between. Right? Even your Vodafone and Airtel and so on, in between these two bands there is some gap. And all of this band is typically staying empty. The reason for keeping it empty is because you don't want interference, right? So there is a leakage going on in the frequency from both the sides. So to avoid overlap of each other, the interference, you leave that gap. But what has happened is, over the period of years, the communication technologies improved so much that this leakage of energy into the gap has reduced. So all of these gaps are empty. For example, FM channel 1 and FM channel 2, there is a gap. And that is typically almost empty. So people are now working to write their protocols so that they can transmit in that frequency band. So you will very soon see communications happening where you use this frequency band of AM radio, FM radio, even TV channels. So you can have a transmitter in FM, send packet and receive it at FM frequency at the other point. And it will be all unlicensed and it will be all free. So that is how we can avoid interference and still transmit data. What is the hidden terminal effect, right? What is so there is a phenomenon that happens on the wireless. It's very common. It's called hidden terminal. So I am actually showing a diagram also. Can anybody just tell me in words what is a hidden terminal?
So maybe like in the diagram, C is not visible to A, but their common source is B. So they can talk via B. So if suppose A cannot directly see C and C cannot directly see A.
Okay.
And the common contact is only B.
Right. But so what is the problem in that? That's fine. So A and C cannot see each other, so they will transmit through B. But that's not the problem. So what happens is, it's not, so A can talk to C via B and there will be routing that will happen. Right? But if A and C directly talk to B at the same time, what's going to happen is, at B there are two signals coming in and they will cancel each other. Right? So in wireless terms we call it collision. Right? So packet from A to B will come, packet from C to B will come, they will collide at B and both the packets coming from C and A will get lost. Right? So there is a drop. And this is a challenge in wireless. It's called hidden terminal problem. This will not happen in the wired case. Why wouldn't it happen in the wired case? So why would this problem not happen in the case if you have a wired Ethernet?
Dedicated resources. There we have dedicated resources.
So what will happen with dedicated? So even here the resources are dedicated, right? So wireless is free for everyone. There is collision detection. Okay, let's. So what happened? Okay.
So in wireless networks, there is signal attenuation because of which A and C cannot see each other. But in wired networks, there would A and C would be able to see each other.
Right. So we have to target this problem. In wired, A and C will always see each other, and that's why there is no hidden terminal. And why would in wired in Ethernet A and C always see each other? How is wired Ethernet? Right? So if you know what wired Ethernet, common hub, right? So there is a concept called hub or a switch, and so at layer 2 you have something called a hub or a switch, right? And both the wires coming from A and C and B will not go directly to each other. They go to this hub, right? So if this is the hub, A is connected, B is connected, and C is connected to this hub, right? And internally there is a right? So nobody is hidden from each other in wired Ethernet. A can receive C's packet, B can receive C's packet, and vice versa. Everybody can get each other's packet. So in wired Ethernet, there is no hidden terminal problem because nobody is hidden. Right? So this is the problem. So A signal will come at B, C signal will also come at B, and at this point there is a collision, and both the signal will cancel or sometimes gargle each other, and then B cannot receive this packet. But in the wired Ethernet, this will not happen. So one technology that we use is CDMA. What is the other two technologies that we use in wireless? FDMA and TDMA. So I was talking about the clock, right? Who will transmit at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock? That is all TDMA. Then we saw already the example of FDMA, where one technology was using a frequency 2.4 gigahertz and somebody else was using some other frequency. That is all frequency division. And then new thing that is called CDMA. Everybody knows what CDMA is?
There is one common signal for all the devices. Every device has this code, and with its code can get the data from that signal that is transmitted to the device.
Okay. It's almost correct. So every node will have a code, and you can say it's like a secret, right? And you encode your data with this secret. So it's an encryption. You encrypt it and send it, and every node will use its own key and so on, and it will send the data. And that is called keying sequence. So we'll see all of that. So this is the encoded signal. It's the original data and some secret, some sequence. And then at the decoding, it's again you do the decoding, and you can receive the packet. So the advantage of this over TDMA or FDMA. What is the advantage of CDMA over FDMA or TDMA? Why do you need another technology or another way of coding data or sending data?
You don't have to divide it, you can use the entire.
Right. So in TDMA, what happens is at a time only one node can transmit at that time instant. In FDMA, at a time only one node can transmit in that frequency. Right? So if frequency is underutilized or your time is underutilized in both of this. In CDMA, two nodes can transmit at the same time, at the same frequency and at the same time. So that means there will be an interference. So they will interfere with each other. But the magic of this code is such that if you get an added version of two signals, and if you decode them, you can individually recover back each signal. Right? And this is actually a magic. Right? What's happening is two signals coming at the same time, they add or subtract whatever they do, and you get a final signal, and still, with some magic, you can come back to the original sequence of every signal, signal 1 and signal 2. Right? So what will happen is, because of this, your bandwidth is increased. So if I have two CDMA phones at they can transmit at the same time with the same frequency, and so your bandwidth is increased. Right? So that is the new technology. And so CDMA is the standard technology for 3G and 4G and so on. Right? So they are using the code division multiple access for all the latest technology. GSM was previously TDMA or FDMA, but now everybody is CDMA with the newer technology. So mathematically, if you look at, this is the sender. Slot 1 it will send some data, slot 2 it will, slot 0 and slot 1 it will send some data. You apply this function of encoding and you send that data to the receiver. When the signal comes to the received input, again, so you get slot 0, slot 1, you apply the decoding function like this, and then you recover back slot 1 and slot 0 data.
Code is associated with each user.
Right, so we'll see that.
Multi-propagation problem will be solved.
So multi-propagation problem, will it be solved? So that will still be a challenge. So we'll see, first let's see the protocol and then we'll come back to the multi-propagation. So if you see in slot 0, you see that this is the data part. So data bit is 0, 1. Right? So D0 is in slot 0, my data is 1. And what I'm doing is in slot 0, I applied it. So I multiply this signal with this signal, and this is my chipping sequence or the secret key. Right? So if you see the frequency of this, that means the number of bits that I am sending in this slot is far more in terms of the chipping sequence as compared to this one. So it's like you take a big data, right? So you take one bit, you divide it in, and that's why it's called chipping. Right? So you divide this bit into very small pieces, and every small piece you encode with some secret. So it's the sequence. Now what will happen is, even if some slots are getting overlapped on this signal, because you divided this bit into so many small chips, you can recover it still at the end. Right? So that's the principal idea. So if you look at this part, So if you just multiply this, if you multiply this by 1, you will get the same thing here again. So it's 1, 1, minus 1, 1, minus 1, 1, and then 3 minus 1, like this. Okay? Look at the second part, which is minus 1. So you take the minus 1 part, and now what will happen is, since this is minus 1, everything will be inversed. Right? So all the plus 1s will become minus 1 and so on. So you get this thing. So when you transmit this part. So you've taken one single bit and divided it into very small chips like this. And you're sending these chips. At the receiving end, let's say there is no corruption of data, so you get as it is. So whatever you say here or see here, you get as it is, right? And then this is your code. So your code is 111, 111, minus 11, and all minus 1. So it's the same code. And you apply it here again. That what you will get is, and you sum up all this chip sequence and you divide it by how many you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you divide it by 8. And if there is no corruption of the signal, you will receive the same number. Can anyone prove this mathematically? How would you prove this mathematically, that you should get the same signal? If you write mathematical equations, what do you think?
It's like 1 added m times divided by m is 1.
Right. So you get 1 here. Right. So let's just take one chip, which is 1, and you multiply 1 2 times by 1. What will happen? You will get the same one. Right. Whatever was the d. So if you have d into 1, you will get d. Right. Whatever the d is. If you get minus 1 into minus 1, what will you get? D. Right. So what's happening is, you are still getting the same bits, and then you are adding it m times, right? So this will get added m times. So that's why you will be having md, and then if you divide it by m, you will recover d, right? So it doesn't matter whether this is plus 1 or minus 1. At the end, you will still get the same d. Okay? So this is how you, in the best case scenario, you get back the same data, and then same thing for the other part, and you get the data. Right? So this was very simple. One sender, one receiver. And we can prove mathematically that we should get the same end or same data, D. What happens if there are two senders? Right? The challenge is when you have two senders. This is sender 1 and this is sender 2. Right? And this is sending plus 1 here and minus 1 here, and this guy is sending plus 1 and plus 1, and you look at their codes now. So this is this guy's code, and this is for the second sender. Now these codes are different. See, it's on 1, 1, 1, and this is 1, minus 1, 1, 1, 1, minus 1, 1, 1. Right? Similarly, you get repeated. So the challenge now is every CDMA phone will be encoded with a unique secret of that phone. So if you buy a CDMA phone, you will get one of these encoded to your phone, and only that code you will need to use whenever you transmit the data. Right? And these codes are not coming out randomly. These are not random codes. If you just have one sender, you can do something randomly, right? Doesn't matter what your code is, finally you will still get the D. But now, with two senders, there's a lot of mathematics that goes on to come up with two different codes, and these codes are called orthogonal. What is orthogonality in mathematics? Perpendicular, right? So they are going into different directions. So that means one doesn't matter to another. So these codes are orthogonal to each other. That means if you get this chip sequence and you add it, they will cancel each other. Right? So they are orthogonal. So if you see, now if you multiply and you add, you get this sequence. You see all the 2's and all the minus 2's, and there are some zeros. So whenever you don't see anything, it's 0. You come here and you apply one code. Right? So you apply the code of sender 1. Right? And with that you get the data from sender 1, and you apply the code for sender 2, you will get the data from sender 2. Right? So that is the magic now. You apply one code to the same signal, you will get data for one sender. You apply the second code for the second sender, you will get the data for the second sender. Right? And this is the orthogonality condition. And so this is what very simple case where you saw two orthogonal codes. If you have a CDMA sequence here, you need far more multiple orthogonal codes like this, because you have to give this code, unique code to every user. So the cell phone tower will apply this signal or this function and retrieve back all the codes. So this is what the CDMA technology is. You see, everybody is transmitting at the same time in the same frequency, and still you can recover the data if the codes are like this. So we'll stop today here, but there is something that I want to discuss. So we are working with Microsoft Research, and we are coming up with an application for, right now we have Android version. We will very soon also have a Symbian version. And I have told you about this a couple of times when we were discussing the projects. So the idea is, so you know all Google, right? So you want to search something on the internet, you just type in that name or whatever you want to search, and Google will give you results. Now, so this is the internet, right? So you search something which is connected to the internet. What if you want to search even the phones? Because all of these phones are continuously online. So you can imagine this phone to be a server. So my phone is a server. So what does it provide to the network? It provides all the photos, songs, movies, videos, books that are there on the phone, accessible to my friends, let's say. I don't want to give access to my phone's information to everybody. But some of my friends can get access to it. So if, let's say I have a book of Android, right? So Android operating system, there is a book, I have it already on my phone. And somebody from you want to search for this book. So we have created an application, you just type in. It will go to your friends, to their phones, search that phone, give me back the result. Saying, okay, this friend or your three of your friends have this book. And if I want to get this book now, whenever we are at the close proximity, so when I say close proximity, let's say so whenever I say, okay, you want this, come to the class, I will give it to you, right? So when we are at the same time in this classroom, the book will be copied from one phone to another phone. Right? So it will come to your phone also, so you can also read it. And you can do the same things with the songs and movies and images and clips. So it's like you have the same Google, but now it is searching the phone. So it's the next search, the next link in the search, the last mile, which is coming from the mobility pointer. So he has developed this application, and he will tell us more about what exactly it needs and how you can. So we request most of you, at least those who have the Android phones installed, or even Symbian. So Symbian is also ready. So if you have the programmable phones, please download so that we can collect some data. As in, so we'll see whether the application is useful or not, what kind of problems you see. If you have suggestions, we'll take the suggestions, improve the applications, and there are some research questions we want to see as to how much time does it take to search, what kind of typically search patterns are there, and so on. Right? So he will talk more about.
Yeah, so thanks for that. So as he already said that we have an application and we have application for both of Symbian and Android operating system. And I could see from the mobile phones, from the what he collected, like a lot of people have Symbian and Android devices, which we want to leverage upon. So the idea is simple, like you want to search the content which is lying there on your friend's phone, and we are overlaying that idea with the user location. So the phone also, your application also keep track of your location, where you are going, and a cloud will help us in predicting where you will be going, and then it will recommend content to you based on your intent. So your intent could be specified by you that I want to take Rockstar song. So it gives you some choices based on the location as well as your social network. So it will only search through your social network. So I mean, anyway you will be sharing files, you will be sharing content with your social network. So right now we are very constrained with the privacy. So we don't let others search your content what you have. Neither we give your friend permission what you have. So they can only search, let's say, Rockstar. So if there is something related to Rockstar in your content, you will only search that. Another thing that I want to tell you is that we will be collecting some personal information, let's say your contact list. But we are really not interested in looking at your contact list personally. So all that data will be aggregated at the server side, and neither me or my team members will look at personally that what data that you have, what are your contacts. No. So that is a guarantee from our side. And also we'll be collecting your personal information, let's say location. So location privacy settings also we have designed in such a way that you don't, I mean it will not look bad at some point of time, because what we have done is we have put a starting time and ending time. So you can decide that okay, whenever I am IIIT, I will save my location, otherwise I will not save my location. I mean, if you are in IIIT, anyway we know your location, so where you are. So I mean, from a privacy point of view, we are taking very strict considerations so that you don't lose your privacy. And you can set that time interval that among this time I want to share my location. So that is another thing that I want to point out. And so how many of you have Android phones here? So I mean, if you are really concerned about your privacy, you are always welcome to come to me and see our database schema itself, what we are collecting on the server. So I have no hesitation in showing you what we are collecting, because we are pretty much clear. And it is not something like that we are doing something, that this data collection point of view is pretty much explored by many universities across the world. So they deploy it in a whole class, like the reality mining data set if you search from MIT. So they collected in 2006-07, they deployed the whole application into a class, collected data for 1 month. So it's a well-established model, because all of you guys are friends among yourselves, so it will be a good model to deploy that application. And I will be personally happy to use any application which come out from this class. So I mean, it is a more of a crowdsourcing friendship model that we have to explore. That I mean, whatever we are building, if you can use it, if you are building, I can use it. So yeah, and also since the application, so the file will not be going to cloud and you will be downloading. No. So file sharing will happen local channels only using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. But the control information is going to cloud. So you will be uploading some, let's say, KBs of information every day to the cloud. That will be a location or a file metadata information. So we will be covering your 1 month GPRS cost. I mean, till the time that you deploy the application. So in the very start, we will give you a 1 month GPRS cost, and you can. So we will make sure that it is sufficient to cover all that downloading uploading cost. So that's what we are ensuring. And I will encourage all of you to use that application. So it's no point in putting that application and not using it, because anyway the whole point of data collection will be vanished. So I will encourage you guys to use that application. How many of you guys have Symbian S60?
S60, but last time your application did install.
Which one? Which one did you use? So we didn't try this application yet. So
No, the other one, in which
oh, that was experimental. So I think if you have S60, it will definitely going to install. You can run Qt in that, right? So it's a Qt based application that we are right now having. So I mean, any question that you have, I'm happy to answer.
So any questions about I have your application? It will automatically give you what files I want to upload. I can see
Yeah, so another thing that is a very valid point, that application gives you a choice that you want to share only these files to your friends. No. So all the private content will lie with you only. And I'm happy to say that, okay, anytime you can come to me and ask what files I've shared and I mean what content did you took from me. I'm happy to show that to you. So.
Again, so once I start this application, it will automatically open the channel for the now.
It will ask you. So it will ask you whether you want to upload using Wi-Fi or a GPRS. So you can choose that. So that's not a problem. And anyway, we are covering the GPRS course, so that's not an issue because we are buying anyway.
And will it be revealed that this person is taking data from the phone?
No. So your identity will, I mean, all the things which you are uploading in cloud will be between us and you. So I mean, nobody
will store my personal network related information, but the actual data which is to be transferred
If you share a video file from one user to another user, do the first user know about this? So this will be right. So when you actually exchange the file, you get you'll be asked for the permission.
So you can assume that it's a content recommendation engine. So we can only recommend you that okay, you asked for a video and that is with this guy. So you go and take to him. That guy will be in close proximity in next 2 hours or something. So it's a content recommendation engine. So if you want to take that file or not, that's purely on your choice. So I mean, we are just recommending you that depending on your location and the content that this guy has. If you have to take, you go use your Bluetooth to transfer that. We don't know what content you are transferring between this Bluetooth and this Bluetooth, so we don't track that.
So you are only sharing the file list, only the file list for my phone is...
Yeah, so only the control information of your file is going to cloud. So we only have your file name essentially and file size. Yeah, so we don't have the actual file content that is lying there on your phone.
And would that file list be of all the data that I have on my phone, or do I have the option?
No, you have option to select. So you can select that I want to share only these files. So only those files metadata will be extracted to send to the cloud.
So I think they can come anytime.
Yeah, so I will be sending out emails. So what we will be doing is we will be deploying the application into batches. So first we will go for Android, I think from tomorrow to next 2-3 days, and then we'll come to Symbian. So I will encourage all you guys to. So it just needs 10 minutes of your time, and we are willing to adjust according to your availability. So I will contact you guys over the email. So I just want to clarify some questions, some queries, and I told you, right? You can come any point of time. I will show you the whole database schema, everything, and me and my team ensure that we will not look your personal data. So yeah. Thank you. Thanks.